What is going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Hey, I think we all wonder on Lake Fork, where do the bass go?
For sure.
I got the man that's going to help us. He probably knows more about it. Mr. Jake Norman, our biologist from Texas Parks and Wildlife. He's been actually tracking bass throughout the year on Lake Fork. We've even got some offshore bass tag now. We're going to break down what's been going on in our Texas Parks and Wildlife tracking survey out here on Lake Fork. Before we get into today's video, I got a quick announcement. We've got a huge event coming up at the end of this week. It's starting on Friday. It's going through Sunday. And man, are we going to have some stuff going on. First of all, this event is going to be a charity to benefit 22 Kill, a great military and first responder oriented nonprofit organization. But just in case you want to be involved, it's going to be a bass fishing party hosted at a Lake Fork Marina. We're going to have a tournament. All you guys can fish a tournament. It's going to be the Your Lake Fork Guide Fish Life weekend tournament, man. We're going to have Friday night. We're going to do a seminar. They're actually going to be a roast. My buddies are going to get up there and talk crap about me for about 30, 45 minutes. After the seminar, we're going to have a concert. We've got a great East Texas artist coming out here to sing for us on Friday night, man. World-class vocals. Going to be here singing, doing a concert. It's going to be amazing. All while that's going on, you can register for the tournament. It's on Saturday. So registration is going to open up at 6 p.m. on Friday. It's going to go till we're done, 9, 10 o'clock, whatever, till the concert's over. You can register Friday night. You can also register Saturday morning. We're going to have an open team tournament, $100 team entry, $20 for big bass, so $120 to get into everything. 70% payback to the field. 30% is going to go to 22 Kill, and it is open to absolutely anybody and everybody that wants to come out, man. Get out here, participate in the event. Even if you can't sign up and fish the tournament, come hang out with us. It's going to be a great time because as soon as the tournament's over, weigh in, we're going to have auction items for sale. There'll be silent auction. There'll be my dumb butt and me and Zach up there selling stuff on a microphone auction. We'll have music going. It's going to be a party that you don't want to miss. Then on Sunday, we're going to have what we're going to call the Your Lake Fork Guide Invitational. It's going to be myself, several other fishing guides, guys you've seen on the channel like Zach Watts, Vic Pearsall, Cody Mays, a bunch of dudes. We're going to have a bunch of really, really good anglers. And at Saturday's weigh-in, you can buy your partner for Sunday's invitational tournament. Sunday's invitational tournament will be a MLF style format where every fish over 2 pounds counts. We're going to fish from 7 a.m. to noon so that we can all get out of here, A, before it gets too hot, but B, so we can all get out of here on time on July 4th to go spend time with our families. So that'll be wrapping up at noon. But you can bid and buy your partner on Sunday. A lot of ways to get involved, even if you can't do any of that. Just come out, hang out, enjoy some good music, enjoy some good fellowship, and a bunch of crazy dudes that love this sport of bass fishing having a great time. We really want to see all of you out here. We want your Lake Fork Guide Nation to show up and show out and show 22 Kill how important they are taking care of the mental health needs of our veterans and first responders. Well, Jake, man, thank you so much for coming out here with us today. You always take the time to break it down for all the people out there. Everybody, if you're crazy about Lake Fork, these are always some of the most informative discussions that we can have, that we get to have with you. So we really appreciate you coming out, man. Thank you, brother.
No, likewise. Thanks for having me, Billy. As always, you're a great help for us to get the word out what we're doing. You really spread the word of some of the cool research we're doing. And like you said, this is for any of those bass addicts out there, people that really want to know some of those questions we've always been asking ourselves. What's going on with these fish throughout the year, through the different seasons?
Right. We're
getting to look at it, and it's been an awesome year so far, and I can't wait to talk about it and tell you where we're going from here.
Absolutely, because we got some new and cool things happening with this tracking survey. It's kind of developing and morphing, and we're, you know, like everything else, we're getting better at it as we go. Yep. We're getting more information as we go. We're getting more details. So there's been a lot of neat stuff that me and you have talked about, and we want to get that word out to all of you guys, because I know for years, you know, I fished Lake Fork before I was guiding, before YouTube, before all that. And man, I had no idea of some of the stuff that you guys were doing. There was no way to really know. So it's one of the reasons I really do enjoy, like you said, getting the word out to everybody, because back in the day, I would have loved to know, because you guys have been doing cool stuff like this since we were all little kids,
yeah,
man.
Very much so. So
yeah.
It's technology's evolved and we're just going with it, but it's been fun, and I love being able to get this information out.
Absolutely. So we did a video earlier this year on the tracking survey that started last October, correct?
Yes.
Started last October.
Started last May.
Started last May.
We did that first recap last October, so.
That's right. We did our first video in October.
Yes,
that's right.
correct.
Okay. So we had tracked them kind of through the summer, and then we actually went out on the water earlier this year in like the pre-spawn winter.
Winterish then because of the weather.
It wasn't supposed to still be winter,
yep.
But it was still winter. But yeah, we actually went on the water and tracked some fish with you guys. Now that's not what we're doing today. We're just going to talk about results. But man, it's really interesting. One of the things that we found out in the earlier video, and you guys can go check that out, it's on the channel. All you got to do is search tracking Lake Fork bass, and I'm sure it'll be the one that pops up, because it's the only one that exists. Yep. But anyways, what was really interesting to me in that first study, especially as we got towards springtime in the pre-spawn period, winter period, those fish weren't really moving.
No.
Like most of the vast majority of the fish really had a home.
Absolutely.
And we'll break down some of the stuff here in a minute because you got some data on how much they move around based on boats. Like, will they leave a spot because of a boat? Because you try, that's part of what you track is, I tell you what, tell us exactly what you guys are studying.
Yeah, we'll do a quick recap again, just kind of the whole, premise was pretty
You know it
obvious
better than I
before.
do, I think.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think maybe. I don't know.
I don't know, I've talked about it a couple times now, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole big premise from the get-go was people just kind of wondering, where are these fish going? We've seen all these good year classes. We're not catching them, and we're not seeing them in the slot. What's going on? People were saying our population's down. And, we had some data that kind of showed we didn't have that big crash, and we're like, all right, the fish are here.
So
What's
you
going
guys,
on?
as you were doing your shock surveys, were saying, your creel surveys, you're like, no, the population's not down.
Yeah,
It really hasn't fallen.
Yeah, from historical numbers, sure, it's down.
Right,
some,
from the
but
peak.
that's-
But not over the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, she's been stable. She's been
Yeah.
stable. So we're like, all right, so what's going on? That's when kind of got the great idea. Why don't we just track these fish, see if we find out something, give us a direct answer. We
Sure.
can tell our anglers later. All right, well, hey, here's why y'all are struggling. Here's what's going on. Here's where they're going. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe they're learning to avoid boat noise, sonar noise, lures. Maybe they just get sick of seeing their buddies getting yanked out of the water all the
Yeah.
time. So they're starting to disperse, move around. And telemetry, it's some old technology. It's been done since the 80s or before. We're using the same equipment, but it can answer those very questions.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we went out starting the end of last May.
Tell us what telemetry is for like a guy like me.
Yeah, sorry. So telemetry is essentially, in this case, in simple terms, it's a little, for ours, a radio transponder that we're actually surgically putting into the fish.
Yeah.
It's got a wire that runs out of it, and it just is dialed into a specific frequency. We've got another archaic box, an old
Yeah.
box. We dial into that exact number, that exact frequency, and within about a mile of when we get to within that, it just starts to ping. It just goes ping, ping, and you've heard it before, just a loud beep.
Mhm.
So that's all it does, is it just beeps, but it lets us know, and it's very directional, so we can start adjusting the sensitivity or the gain.
Absolutely.
And we can get right down to, as you've seen, right, the tree it's on, the
Yes.
point it's on, anything
Yes.
as you dial in, so we can pinpoint that fish down to a really tight circle.
And you guys go out every week, every couple weeks, and you're going out and finding these fish with these radio transponders, and you're marking their movements. You're marking the data of where they move, and you guys also, if they'll stay put, you'll cast at them.
Yeah.
Now you have to use the same bait all the time, which is the flaw and the stupidest thing ever. I know it's science. I get it.
Yep.
It's science, but anyway, they throw the same bait at the fish. It's a
10-inch power worm.
10-inch power worm.
5-aught hook.
There you go.
3/8 weight. I mean, you can go. It's tungsten at least. I'm
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do got tungsten
Yeah.
going for us. We're upgraded now, folks.
Yes.
But anyways, so you're throwing the same power worm at them every time, which is a good bait to pick. It's about as
Year-round.
versatile as it gets. Yeah. And you actually are marking the data on, does this fish move when the boat gets close to him? Does this fish stay put when the boat gets close to him, and then move when I cast at it?
Exactly.
Like you're making all those data points, keeping all those data points, and really seeing what percentage of fish are reacting to boats, what percentage of fish are reacting to baits, what percentage of fish will actually bite.
Yeah,
all
all
that
of those
stuff.
things. So, and it gives us, again, I think as any angler, questions we're always going through our head when we're out fishing of what's going on. Are these fish moving from my boat? When I catch them, are they moving? When I cast at them, are they moving? We're just actually collecting the data on that. Like you said, every 2 weeks we come in here and track that same set of fish.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do we get just a big picture of the habits they're using throughout the different seasons. Are they shallow? Are they deep? Are they using vegetation? Are they on timber? Are they on roadbeds, humps? Everything between habitat, structure, all of it. I mean, I get it down to a T of what they're using every single week. And also, we talked about before, we're using live scope when we can to actually determine if they're in a school or by themselves.
Yes.
And if they're suspended up off the water column, off the bottom, or are they
They're
hugging
down.
the bottom tight?
Yeah.
Just some other things, just to see if we see changes in that consistently throughout the seasons. Just looking at everything, really every piece of data we're trying to collect is based off of questions I think anglers ask.
Absolutely.
Every single piece of it is based
all
on
part of the-
angler-driven data.
It's part of the puzzle that we're all out here trying to solve every time
time.
we're out here.
Big
So
time.
it's very, very handy information to have.
Yes.
And to learn and to know. I know when I went out with you guys in the springtime or the pre-spawn time, it was very informative and very educational, and it also opened my eyes to, man, some of the areas that I fish, I'm always fishing like the stuff that seems like the best structure in that area, and there's a lot of fish that just kind of get in between.
Just off.
And we'll talk about, we're going to recap all this at the end, but so for now, specifically, one thing that I wanted to do is talk to you about the springtime movements, because bass probably move, in theory, from what everybody knows, and thinks and believes bass move more throughout the springtime than they do through the rest of the year, more than likely, right?
Yeah.
I would say that's fair to assume. And you guys have now had the tracking survey through the springtime. So what did we find as far as the movement of the fish in the springtime that's maybe different than what the fish do throughout the year?
Sure. We'll look at it, break it down from honestly what I saw in the fall and into the spring, because I think that's the biggest contrast and kind of one of the bigger surprises. Overall, we had a lot more just not reacting to the boat, but just different positions where they're at day in, day out. The fall was a lot more random. We had more fish that didn't move much the rest of the year. They were moving to new locations, and just for the fall, wintertime came and they came right back to their home range.
So they went back to where they were in the summer during winter, but during fall they kind of get up, probably just chasing bait around, right?
Everything
just
people expect.
Randomly chasing,
yeah. But they really do. There was not nearly as consistent of a pattern for fish in the fall.
Interesting.
They really moved. Now, get back into the springtime. Most of our fish moved right back to where their tight home range was, outside of those few outliers that were just always random.
Yeah, you've got a few fish that just kind of do dumb stuff for dumb reasons because they got a little bitty brain.
Nemo fish or something,
yeah.
But truthfully, the rest of them, we're talking 100 yards or so was their home range through late spring, last summer, skipped the fall. They mostly came back there in wintertime. And the spring, most of those fish, they spawned within that same area. I mean, they
really?
most of those fish that you see the mouth of Birch going in, what's that?
Duck call
on the right going in. We had a few fish on the point there and a few back in it.
For the record, guys, this study's being done in Birch Creek, essentially, at the mouth and into Birch Creek.
Yes.
It's all about keeping the data points the same, it's all about the science factor. It's not like we're going all over Lake Fork tracking fish.
And truthfully, we couldn't have done it lake-wide. I mean, we spent a whole day.
Too hard to find them.
Yeah, too hard to find.
Yeah.
Birch Creek was essentially a lake in itself, a big, important arm of Fork. So
it's got a little bit of everything,
exactly.
All types of structure, grass, all that,
Exactly. So some of those fish that were maybe on those points at the mouth of it, they slid back just a little bit right there up on the bank, and that's where they spawned.
Really?
A lot of our other fish back further in some of those other pockets, I mean, they were there the whole time. They moved 100 yards or less, moved up there and spawned. Almost every fish. The only one that was kind of strange, and I can't tell you what it did, was our fish on the island that you saw that was locked on that stump. That one stump, and he spent his whole last summer, everything through.
He was
fall.
on the same stump every time, folks. Like on the same stump every time.
Yeah, he disappeared for a month. Right during the spawn.
So he went and spawned somewhere, and you don't know where he went.
And we searched for him. So it's not like we just said, he's gone. We looked for him.
He wasn't anywhere near there.
Was not in Birch. Was not within that first outer mouth of Birch anywhere. He wasn't there. I don't know, but he came back. He was gone 2 events, two events in a row.
So he's gone for a month, basically.
Middle of March through the middle of April, he was gone.
He spawned.
Exactly. He went and spawned somewhere. Now, why that fish? When there's plenty of places that fish could have spawned there. He could have gone. And he didn't. He went. I don't know where he went, but he came back at the beginning of May. He was right back.
He went over to Pinson or something.
So,
who knows?
Yeah, very well. We didn't pick him up over there either. So
who knows? He went up to Highway 19 and found an old girl on a bed.
Yeah, that one did something. And again, he was a slot fish, so he shouldn't have gone in a live well anywhere. Not to say he didn't, but he shouldn't have. So that fish, and the fact that he came back again early May, he was right back on the point of that island again.
Wow. That's incredible.
So that one fish had some desire to go somewhere really random to spawn. The rest of our fish, they stayed, like I said, 100 yards, give or take.
Maybe he's got like a special girlfriend or something. Because the women, they'll make you make bad decisions sometimes.
Yep.
If she's good enough, you might make some faulty decisions.
Yeah, they might be more like us than we think.
Yeah. No, okay, so very interesting there. So they really didn't move that much in the spring. More movement in the fall, you say?
More movement in the fall.
More movement in the fall. Interesting.
One more cool fish in the spring was our biggest fish in the study before. It was a 21.5 incher that we were following. It was down the left side going into Birch. It was our only deep fish most of that study. She was spending a lot of her time out in 15 to 20 feet of water.
I remember that fish, yeah.
She never left that area either. We found her one event up on a big stump up shallow in 4 feet of water, and she would not move that stump that time. Couldn't see her.
And that was one, if I remember correctly, when we tracked her, she would kind of move from the boat a little bit. She would wander, not like leave the area, but she would move around.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. She was 1 week, and it was in the end of April, so a little bit later, but peak of this year, peak of
this year, yeah, everything was late.
She locked on she was on a big stump in 4 feet of water up shallow. I'm going to assume she spawned right there, which again is kind of off the, up there's bulkhead behind it. It's really not protected, but it's a big tree.
So she just kind of went up there and most likely spawned there because she actually got locked on, wouldn't leave that stump.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep. And then which
That's
was kind of cool that, you know, it's like this.
Because that fish had a personality of a wanderer, and then all of a sudden now she won't move.
Yeah. And then right after that, she has moved right back out off that spot back to 10 to 15 feet for a little bit. Now she's been back out 15
in her
plus.
home range.
Yeah, but right there.
Huh.
Which was really interesting. And you know, I kept waiting for that fish as the spawn really start going. I was like, no, she's still over here, just waiting for her to slide into a true spawning pocket, and she never did.
That is very eye-opening from a fishing point of view. What I'm hearing and thinking and processing in my mind is, you know, out here on Lake Fork, there's spawning pockets that are just traditionally really good spawning pockets.
Yep.
And what I'm hearing is, well, that makes sense because they come back to the same pocket every year. We're finding a lot that these fish do have a home area. And certain sections of the lake are going to have more fish in it than others because those fish really don't leave those areas.
Yep.
But what I'm also hearing is wherever you have a good spawning pocket, you need to be fishing around that area year round because those fish really aren't, most of the fish, theoretically, by this study, aren't moving very far to spawn in summer, really only in the fall when they get random.
Yeah, when they move the most, absolutely.
So the majority of the fish in this deal have a home range, and they're spawning near that home range. So like everybody knows, Long Branch is a tremendous spawning pocket.
Yep.
The likelihood is that those fish in Long Branch are living in Long Branch or at the mouth of Long Branch throughout the year.
Yeah, there's at least a good population of fish in this lake, without a doubt now, that don't do a mass migration up into spawning pockets and then back out all the way out to the main lake. That doesn't happen. Now, mind you, again, these fish we collected in the first place, these were all last year collected with electrofishing up shallow during the springtime. So
they're more shallow water driven fish. They're not offshore fish.
Most likely, and because we did have two fish that left our study site that we collected back in Double Branch last year, and they moved out, and they were 19 and 20 inch fish. So they did move. But the rest of these fish, they were
home range
without a doubt.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, that takes us to our next point. So there's the spring movements.
I got one more thing to actually come.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. One more cool, interesting tidbit I saw in the spring. You know, we talked about how often the fish are moving from our boat before.
Yeah.
And it was about, through the rest of the study.
I meant to ask you
Yes.
this.
You know, I looked at it from the data I had from last October, summarized it all, and it was about 50% of the time these fish were jumping around, at least getting alerted, clearly alert to our presence from a boat, reacted to it without a doubt. Looked at the data again through this June, so everything from last year through June, combined it all together, it was about exactly the same, like a percentage difference, so the exact same trend. But I pulled out just our spring data, so middle of March through middle of May, and it was actually a whole lot less.
They didn't run from the boat near as much in
They
springtime.
didn't. And, you know, for people that think when they're on the spawning beds is that time you have to be the most stealthy, because if you don't, you're going to blow the fish off and move them away and everything else.
Yeah.
Our data says it's honestly the exact opposite. Well, sure, they're doing it then. I mean, everyone sees it happen, but it's almost they're more alert and more worried about boats by them and moving more the rest of the season. During the spawning season, they're staying put a lot more.
They're just dedicated to that spot, and they won't. It's not that they don't know the boat's there, but they're not going to leave because of the boat.
Exactly.
Per se.
Exactly.
Often.
Yep. So
do they bite better when they're in that spring, because you're throwing the same worm throughout the year?
Yep.
And so some of that may have to do with, well, this is a better bait for that time of year.
Seasonal.
But really, the best time of year to throw that is in the summer.
Yep.
It's what we all throw big worms in the summertime.
Yeah.
Do they bite better when they're more territorial or locked into an area during the springtime?
Didn't see as big of a difference with that either.
Okay.
Some of that's angling air. I'll attribute to me. Dave was on the boat a couple of those times. I think I lost 3 different fish this spring that I'll never know.
Dave's holding the camera. Give Dave a shout out in the comments, folks. He's our cameraman today.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. 3 different times this spring that I hooked a fish right where it's pinging, and I think all 3 of the fish jumped and got off, and I'm just sitting there. It was the right size fish, so I don't know. I'll never know if it was our fish or another fish.
Well, that's where if you were in my boat, I would look at you and go, listen, bro, I'm a fishing guide. I can take you to the fish. I can't catch them for you.
Yeah, it was a personal moment of shame for,
There you go.
I did catch one this spring though, and but I've caught 2 total through this whole study.
Wow.
So to put it in perspective, I can't say if they bought bit more through the spring or not. The one I did catch was on a bed. I think I told you about this. Its wire was actually cut, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah, somebody cut a wire.
And it had been caught 2 or 3 times before, and she was an obvious spot on a bed. She had a couple different marks on her.
Gotcha.
But overall, I didn't see a difference with those fish biting more right during the spring spawn versus the rest of the year.
Okay.
It was the biggest thing that stood out was that the movement or lack thereof. It was about 50% the rest of the time. It was like 30% during the spawn. So when it was 50 throughout the rest of the season, dropping down to 30%, that's a significant difference, without a doubt.
Yeah, it is a huge difference. So you mentioned earlier that all these fish were electroshocked up shallow to get the tags in them.
Yep.
We're morphing this program, the study, as we go along into the second year of it now.
Yep.
And we're catching offshore fish and studying offshore fish that were caught offshore. So the theory, I think, and we've talked about this, the theory is that these offshore fish that we catch offshore, maybe they'll have more of a tendency to move around the lake, be more nomadic. And we really want to track the movements of some offshore fish. So tell us what's been going on this summer with the program.
Yeah, this was, we finally got the ball rolling on this. I wanted to try and do it last summer, and I was a little nervous with water temps getting up. Everything just got up kind of out of hand, and I wasn't going to push the issue.
For the health of the fish.
For the health of the fish.
Yes.
At this point, we tried to look for deep fish throughout a lot of the spring. Like most people know, there's a reason you're not fishing deep in March, April, and
right.
May. Well, April and May especially. In May this year, there should have been some out there. There just wasn't too many.
Well, the water was 75 degrees till the end of May. It just stayed cool.
Right. So finally just said, all right, we're gonna get some tags out in deep fish no matter what the water temps are. We're just going to try it. It's a small number. The mortality may be higher on them. I mean, that's the unfortunate reality.
We'll
that's
have
the
to
case.
see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and
yet.
see. I mean, fish just caught and released this time of year. More fish die. I mean, that's the unfortunate reality. But I think the data we could get from these is well worth. If we do lose a few fish, if we hold on and some make it, and we track them for another year, I think that's going to be some really eye-opening data.
Hopefully.
On us. So we're going to get, like you said, we're going to get a better idea of what are these deep fish. The ones we've caught deep so
far. Are they home range?
Yes.
Or because the theory for me, my theory is shallow water fish do tend to be more residential, stay in an area, and fish that are schooling offshore, operating in groups offshore, they tend to move around more. Because when we graph them, the reason I think that is because you'll go over an area, that'll have a lot of fish on it, and then the next day you go over there's nothing there. But an area that didn't have anything the day before, tomorrow may have a good school on it. So I've always thought that those fish move around. I think that's the general consensus. They move around more when they live offshore, and that's what we're trying to figure out.
No, absolutely. And a few things we can look at with that even is, is it the same group of fish staying together the whole time? If we start catching a few fish out of the same school, we got a few out of one last week, are those fish are we going to find them together throughout this entire time, or is it just a random occurrence? There's a school of fish, they're splitting up, they're moving back together, it's different groups all over. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. And also, these fish came from a well-known community spot at the mouth of Birch.
Oh yeah, we're talking about Heartbreak Ridge, runs out to public hump out there. Some people call it Hoot Owl. It's a great spot. There's always boats on it. My boat's on it all the time.
Yep, we got lucky and got in there a day that there wasn't any boats. It was amazing, and the fish were there. We caught a few, so it's going to be fun to see where those fish go.
How many did we get tagged out there on Heartbreak Ridge?
4 out there. We got four fish from there.
4 tagged on Heartbreak Ridge.
We've mentioned, and like I said, I have no problem saying, unfortunately, one of them died within 24 hours.
It did.
And that was an over.
It was an over.
I left the Tuesday of that surgery and that study. I was on cloud 9, excited as all get up. We've got it over. We're gonna track what's this big girl gonna do for the next year. And I got a phone call the next day from an angler. Not even 24 hours later. At first, wow, he caught her already. He's like, I found this fish with tag number floating dead, and I knew it. And it's like,
oh man.
So not only, she had died and bloated up, and she was about 100 yards north of that, just where the wind had carried her.
The reality is, post-spawn fish, some of them die.
Yep.
They do.
No.
And so maybe the stress of that ordeal did her in, and maybe it didn't. You'll never really be able to tell for sure. But, one fish in a lake like Fort.
That's what I'm saying.
It's nothing. It's nothing.
At first, I felt like somebody called me and told me they found my dog dead on the road. But again, that's just because as an angler, as anything else, I hate losing fish. But like you said, it's a drop in the bucket for what this lake has.
Yeah,
so
really is.
Even this handful of fish we're going to put out.
Well, just make sure we get the good data on it, and then it'll all be. Do not let her die in vain, Jake.
That's. I would have loved to have found at least just 1 or 2 points on her beforehand, just to see.
Yeah, sure, because she's a bigger fish.
Yeah, what she was doing.
So how big were the other?
They're still good sized fish.
The other 3 from that spot.
20 to 21 and a half inches still.
Okay, good fish.
So 4 to
4 or 5 pounders.
Yeah, she was pushing. The one was pushing 6 just because she was thick. Then she was, but so your typical 4 to 5.5, 4 to 6 pound fish.
Okay, good.
Is what we have. Yeah. So.
And we're gonna try to get a few more, maybe.
I'm hoping right now we're looking at the beginning of next week. If I know we got some rain coming, but if everything lies out, we're gonna try and get some next week. I have 8 tags left. from the original purchase. So at this point, I want to get all of them out.
Well, and we need to get them out because one thing that's happening is you've tracked these fish that you put in the original program for over a year now.
Yep.
But the batteries are starting to die and we're losing the signals on them,
Yep.
right?
Most of the fish from the original study are going to be out of the study now. We were when we purchased them, got them dialed in, we were honestly told we'd be looking at about 1.5 or 2 years for the study. Not sure why, but they lasted about a year to the day almost. Todd Driscoll with his fish had the exact same thing.
Okay.
Things started happening, so we got about a year out of them.
But a year's, I mean, that's a good.
We still got we got an entire season. We got everything from May.
All four,
from
yeah.
May through mid-June of the next year.
There you
so
go.
I mean, we covered a year of what those fish did. So I wanted to get some more tags out anyway. Now it's kind of more. All right, I want to focus on some of these larger fish for sure. I know what your run-of-the-mill, just in the slot fish do in Birch at least. I've got a pretty obvious snapshot of what they do. I want to see more of what some of our bigger fish, both in Birch and at the mouth of Birch, what they're doing for the next year. And again, some of the biggest things I think will be exciting for those fish on that community ridge on Birch is where do they go this fall? Where do they go in the winter? This spring? Where are those fish spawning? If they hold on, where are those fish going to spawn, or they might disappear like the others?
That will be a very interesting thing for me personally because I've fished so much out there on that area. That ridge holds for so many years.
Yeah.
I fished that ridge out there for 8, 9, 10 years now. And it holds so many fish. The schools get so big out there. And then when we go to fall, I have my own theories about how they move into Birch Creek and where they go and what they use to travel. And so that will be a very interesting study to see the results of that and see how probably most likely wrong I am. Because the more that I do this, the more that I realize that all of us are just taking a big old guess and we're usually wrong.
Yeah, we can, that's the case with a lot of things in life. You can make assumptions on, if you say with confidence, you might sound like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, that's really going to be, again, I thought you'd be interested in that as an angler myself, that spot specifically, because it gets so much pressure and it holds so many fish. I really want to try and get
one of
more out there.
the biggest superstructures on it. It's so long, the drops are so big, the hump on the end, the creek channel going around, there's so much going on out there. It's like one of the biggest pieces of superstructures other than, like Dale and maybe kind of out at the mouth of Glade are the only other two that really kind of compare to the size of structure that is. It allows it to hold so many fish.
Absolutely. So it's so that's really going to be a fun part of this study going forward. Really hope next week to get a couple more out there, without a doubt.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. It's awesome what you guys are doing and the data points that you guys are finding, and really, like I kind of said this earlier, but we'll kind of do a summary on it from an angling point of view, from you guys as fishermen, from my point of view as a fisherman. Essentially, what we're finding through this study is your areas that are good areas for a reason, and those fish really don't leave those areas. Now we've kind of developed the second phase of the program. We're going to see some offshore fish and see if that's the case offshore, and we'll be obviously following up with Jake and getting you guys included on that data as well. But man, if you guys got areas of Lake Fork that you like, or what, the reality is whatever they're doing here, they're probably doing pretty much the same thing on most bodies of water. So if you got areas that you like to fish, stick with them, expand, learn those areas more in depth, because one thing that I did find is some of the stuff these fish, like I said earlier, some of the stuff these fish are setting up on is not the obvious stuff. It's not, they're not on the crest of the point or the shell bed or the creek bend. They're not always on that. You need to learn those areas better and fish around more expansively and more thoroughly in those areas, because those fish kind of get, a high percentage of fish get kind of in what most of us consider kind of in between and no man's land, whatever you want to call it.
Yep, and that's without a doubt what we've seen in a lot of these. Like you said, they're just maybe just off to what some people want to call the juice, the hot spot, anything. They're not always on that. I'm sure they pull up on it at some point.
Go over and feed and go back to their home.
That timing that everybody talks
probably
about.
Probably got a bedroom and a kitchen type deal, right?
We've seen some of that already. We might see more of some of these offshore fish, but they're without a doubt, they're not just staying on the obvious spot 24/7. Because we've already, those few we've got up there already that we're tracking. We went out last week and tracked them once already. One of them was right there because there was a big school of fish that was over the top of it right then. One was mixed in right with them. The other two had already one had slid off a ways, quarter mile. Stayed in Birch, but it slid off about a quarter mile already. The other one had just moved off, kind of out off that ridge and hump, kind of just approaching no man's land already.
Yeah.
So we'll see even more of what those fish do. Yeah.
Very interesting. So that'll be a good study. We'll have to follow up with you on that at the end of the summer. But Jake, man, thanks so much as always for coming out and taking the time to break this down and explain to us what's going on with where the heck these fish are going in Lake Fork. And I know it's all going to make us all better anglers, and that's what you guys are trying to do. My favorite thing about getting to talk with you guys and work with you guys, the more that I get to know y'all, is you guys are just really bass fishermen that have more of the scientific knowledge base, but at your core, you're all guys that are passionate about bass fishing. You love to get out here and catch them every chance you get.
That's what brought me here.
And you want, you want this fishery to succeed, and you want all the anglers to be able to catch as many and as big a fish as possible.
Without a doubt.
So it's probably why we get along so good and work well together, because this channel is all about loving your fellow man and helping each other catch more and bigger fish, and that's actually what every one of these guys is all about. Jake, thank you, brother, so much.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you guys for watching. Drop us some comments, ask some questions. I'll make Jake get on there and answer them. We appreciate you watching. As always, we'll see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide.